evening, everyone. I'm Sam Hall. I'm the executive editor of the Daily Journal, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight for the mayoral debate between Democratic nominee Victor Fleitas and Republican nominee Todd Jordan. Glad to see a good crowd here in person, and we also have a lot of people watching from home on our live stream. So this should be a good evening. I think that debates are an important part of our political process. I think it gives voters an opportunity to see candidates, answer questions, and talk about issues, and be able to have a conversation between them and a third party. And I also think that they are very important for local elections. Offices like mayor often have a larger impact on our day-to-day lives than larger offices like Congress or even president most of the time. So I look forward to a lively debate tonight, and now we'll turn this over. Well, sorry, before we get started, I do need to go over a couple of ground rules. First of all, I would ask that you hold all of your applause until the very end of the debate. The one exception will be when the candidates come on stage, and Caleb will let you know when you can applaud then. Otherwise, during the debate, just please, no applause. The second part is, if you would, just remain quiet throughout the debate so that the conversation can flow, despite whatever you may think about an answer or what's being said or what's being asked. We just ask that you keep those thoughts to yourself until the very end, and then you can let everyone know. And finally, if you would, please turn off your cell phones or silence them. Same with your watches or any other devices that might make noise and disrupt tonight's event. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Caleb Bedillion, our political editor and tonight's moderator.
All right, good evening, and thank you for joining us here tonight at this Tupelo Mayoral debate hosted by the Link Center, and we want to thank them for this facility, and we also want to thank Jim Current. You won't see him, but he is running our sound for us, being very generous with his time, and for that we are gracious. So, of course, whether you are here in person or watching online, we, of course, thank you, and we are grateful, and we hope that this evening's discussion will educate and inform your efforts to be an active and engaged citizen. Now, a good many of you probably know who I am, but if you do not, as Sam said, my name is Caleb Bedillion, and I am the politics editor here at the Daily Journal. And so I'm going to briefly explain the format of tonight's debate, and so you can follow along and know what the rules are, and then we will bring out our candidates. So because of a coin toss before the event started, Mr. Fleitas will have the first of the opening statements, followed by Mr. Jordan, and then Mr. Jordan will have the first of the closing statements. Also, because of the coin toss, Mr. Fleitas will get the first question, and then we will alternate thereafter. The format of the main portion of the question session is I will ask a question. The first candidate will have 2 minutes to provide a response, up to 2 minutes. Then the other candidate can provide a 1-minute response, and then the original candidate can provide an additional 30-minute rebuttal or response if they wish. So, with that said, I'd like to go ahead and bring out our candidates and give them a round of applause as we bring and introduce the candidates for mayor in the city of Tupelo. Okay, a brief introduction of our candidates. On your right is Todd Jordan. He is the Republican nominee for mayor, and he is currently a Lee County supervisor and real estate agent. And on your left is Victor Fleitas. He is the Democratic nominee for mayor, and he is currently an attorney. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our question. No, actually, I'm wanting to jump straight into the fun part for me, but these candidates get a chance to introduce themselves to you first. So, of course, thanks to the coin toss, Mr. Fleitas will go first. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Fleitas, and I'm your nominee for mayor of the city of Tupelo. I moved to Tupelo 25 years ago after graduating from the University of Mississippi School of Law. I moved here with 3 young sons. I started a law practice, which blessedly has been successful over the years. I raised my sons to adulthood, all 3 graduates of Tupelo High School. I'm married to Lisa Bailey Fleitas, my wife, a nurse practitioner in the emergency room at Amory. Having everywhere in the world I could have lived, I chose Tupelo. And the reason I chose Tupelo is because it's a wonderful place to live and raise a family, meet people, and live a truly good and decent life. I want to, as your mayor, to continue all the progress that I've seen over the years that I've lived here. I have the experience, I have the education, I have the history of service and commitment to my fellow man to do the best job to lead our city forward. And I welcome the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jordan, now it's time for your opening statement.
Yes, good evening. My name is Todd Jordan. I was born and raised in Tupelo. I walked the downtown streets as a kid, went to movies at the Leary, and once a year walked through the gates of the fair. I also went to Robbins Field to watch high school football, hopefully and dreaming one day that I can play. That dream eventually came true. In 1989, I graduated from Tupelo High School and went on to Mississippi State on an athletic scholarship. I would eventually become the first person to graduate college in my family. Athletics taught me to be a team player and a leader. After a year in the Canadian Football League, I came back to Tupelo. I married Christy Jordan. We came to Tupelo to student teach in 1996. And fortunately for me, she stayed. But we were married in 2003. She is now finishing her 25th year as an administrator at Tupelo Public School District. My working career started at Tupelo Coliseum, where I saw the backbones of entertainment business. Is where I first started to manage employees. I then started a pressure washing business. As I travel the city, I see areas that we can do better when it comes to cleanliness, from our downtown sidewalks to our city buildings and park and rec areas. People that come here from other cities do notice. Almost 15 years I began a career in real estate. It is where I learned contracts and developed negotiation skills. I'm able to recognize the need for housing across our city, and it is important to me to protect our property values. Currently, I serve on the Lee County Board of Supervisors. In a short time, I've learned to recognize drainage problems, road conditions, safety concerns, and operating a $40 million budget. I believe my leadership in sports as a young adult through my leadership on the Board of Supervisors have prepared me to lead the state's 6th largest city.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Now it's time for the question. So the first question goes to Mr. Fleitas. The city of Tupelo's police department is one of the largest and most visible components of the city. It's often one of the pieces of local government that both local citizens and visitors to town are most likely to interact with. Now, you have called for increased and enhanced anti-bias training within the Tupelo Police Department, as well as for a greater focus on community-oriented policing. Can you provide more specifics tonight about any reforms or changes you want to make to the police department while addressing any concerns that these reforms or changes might harm public safety?
Nothing I've advocated throughout this campaign and at all the various forums that I've spoken at will do anything to harm public safety. In fact, what it will do is ensure better outcomes in the future. We need implicit bias training. We need training regarding crisis intervention, Our officers need to be trained on mental health issues because we're forcing more of those issues on them because the state is not picking up its responsibilities. These are the most difficult calls for officers to have to deal with. And what I expect is that we're going to have well-trained, professional officers that are backed by an administration that understands the problems that they deal with in the street. I have spent 25 years addressing issues of policing in and out of the courtroom. The safety of every officer is of critical importance to me, as well as the safety of every citizen. And the way we make sure we get good outcomes is we insist on the best training. We insist on having policies that promote good outcomes. That's my pledge to you. It is my pledge to every officer in uniform.
Mr. Jordan, you have 1 minute.
Well, first off, we are going to be faced with the challenge of appointing a police chief. First, I will hire an independent review board to look through the applications and give recommendations on who to interview. I believe our police chief needs to be administrative, innovative, energetic, and also engaged. I do not want to hire a police chief that is sit behind the desk for 25 years. I believe that police chief needs to be trained in community policing programs that are geared toward safe street programs such as neighborhood watch programs and homeowner association partnerships. I'd also like to appoint a liaison between the police and fire departments that we can identify our most vulnerable, that include assisted living, bed confinement, and handicapped patients confined to their homes. I believe they also should establish annual benchmarks to evaluate their productivity.
Thank you. 30 seconds, Mr. Fleitas.
I believe that I will consult with individuals and professionals in of people that I've appointed to then tell me who I should select. The police chief that I select will be a law enforcement professional of unprecedented training, skill, and experience.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jordan, can we have you, next question goes to you first, and can you make sure you're speaking more directly into the mic, or maybe lift it up if you can. If you unscrew this and raise it up, I think it may be a little bit closer to you. There we go. There we go. Maybe that will help. So you have anticipated my next question, which is good. Maybe that will really allow us to drill down into the details of this next question and get some specifics. You brought up the police chief, and of course, as probably many in our audience know, because the current police chief has announced his retirement, the next mayor is certain to have to name a new police chief. Now, as you have tonight, Mr. Jordan, you have repeatedly said that you would rely on some sort of independent or appointed board to be involved in the process of the selection of the next police chief. Will you here tonight provide us with details about who or what sorts of people would be on this board, what their involvement in the process would look like, and how you would evaluate their feedback in the selection of the next police chief? You have 2 minutes.
I believe there would be 2 processes, Caleb. One would be that independent review board to look at the applicants and then recommend who would be interviewed. I believe at that point I would hire and put together a committee or task force to look at those qualifications and recommend 2 or 3 people off of that I could look at hiring. I want them to be, just like I said, trained, innovative, engaged. I want them to be able to go out in the community themselves and be part of our community. I believe what is lacking with the police force now is our administrative part, or our administration people in the police and the upper level are just that. They don't get out into the public and look and see actually what needs to be happening. They rely on They're officers, which is fine, but I believe they need to be engaged more in that process.
So no specifics on who would be on this review panel or board?
Not at this time, no.
Mr. Fleitas, you have 1 minute.
We have an outstanding HR department in the city. We have established practices and procedures for taking applications for positions at all levels throughout the city. And that's exactly the process that we would go through in order to ensure that we have the best qualified pool of applicants possible from which we can make that decision. I don't believe we need to add extra layers. We can do this. We can find a professional law enforcement officer, someone with the experience managing a department of this size, someone who has ideas about moving policing forward, and who will have every confidence of the frontline officers.
Mr. Jordan, you have 30 seconds if you want it.
I think we've covered it.
Okay, all right. Then the next question will be directed first to Mr. Fleitas. Mr. Fleitas, one of the most important duties a mayor has is to ensure public safety and to lead in times of crisis, whether that be a natural disaster or some other sort of crisis. Within recent years in the city of Tupelo, we have seen numerous destructive tornadoes, ice storms, straight line winds, and of course the global pandemic that we have all been dealing with for over a year now. Now, you have never held elected office before. You've been an attorney in private practice. Do you believe you are qualified and ready to lead in the event of a significant crisis event? And can you explain why that is? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I've been a leader my entire life, from grade school through high school, college, law school. I've served in the military. I have committed my life to service. I served on committees of the Mississippi Bar. I've served as the president of the Lee County Bar. I've served as an officer of the 1st Judicial District. I've done pro bono work. There has never been an occurrence, hurricane, tornado, where I have not offered my services free to assist people injured. When storms hit, when storms threaten. I've been in my neighborhood handing out ice to my neighbors in advance of storms, shoveling off sidewalks for neighbors who weren't able to do so themselves. There hasn't been a moment in my life where I haven't led. I am ready now, and I will lead from the front.
Mr. Jordan, you have 1 minute to respond.
As Lee County Supervisor, that is what we do. We are on the front. During our last tornado, after my family was safe, I was out helping remove debris, called in our road crew to make sure they could get people home safely. With the pandemic, we had to make tough decisions. We had to make decisions that were not popular, but we thought was in the best for our citizens. I'm already in that role. I already have the experience, and that's why I am qualified.
30 minutes, Mr. No, 30 seconds, if you want.
Let me say this. The night of the last tornado, once the all clear had passed over Fair Park, I left my home probably upsetting my wife because I needed to go through the Park Hill neighborhood. I needed to drive by Ms. Nettie's house to make sure that she was okay. And I needed to see the damage that had been done in my neighborhood so that I could get up early the next morning with a pair of jeans and some boots and get busy.
Your time is up. All right, Mr. Jordan, the next question is to you. And as you have already mentioned, you are currently a Lee County supervisor, and that board of local government has for years struggled to come up with a policy response to concerns that the local jail is overcrowded and is deteriorating. Now, this issue of the jail has also been a source of conflict between the elected leadership of the city of Tupelo and the elected leadership of Lee County, even as the current jail was built because of a partnership between the city of Tupelo and Lee County. The city of Tupelo provided the land on which the jail was built. Now, do you believe that, once again, the city of Tupelo has a role to play to address any concerns that may exist about the jail, and what might that role be? You have 2 minutes.
I believe that all municipalities and the Lee County Board of Supervisors need to sit down. And I think we all have a voice, or need a voice, to say so on a new jail. Our jail is 24 years old. If the Board of Supervisors decided today to build a new jail, the old jail will be about 28 years old before the new jail was built. It is already deteriorating. There's infrastructure problems. This year, as the county did the work themselves, we spent about $80,000 just putting the culvert in because the roads were sinking. There was sewer that's backed up. Crowdedness in the men's and the women's pods. Safety concerns for the workers and the inmates. There have been lawsuits because of the conditions of the jail. We need a new jail. Now, my position as mayor will be different than my position as the Lee County Board of Supervisors. But whatever the Board of Supervisors decides, is we can come up with a proposed plan with the municipalities, I will support.
Mr. Fleitas, you have 1 minute to respond.
Let me say what I've said from day one of my campaign. No new taxes for an $80 million 400-bed jail. The jail is only 24 years old. You don't build government buildings that only last 24 years. In 2009, the Daily Journal reported that it would cost $7.7 million for an administrative wing, an additional pod, and some additional space. And now it's $80 million. No. I have not gotten a good answer since this campaign started from anyone about why we're in the situation we're in. And until I do, no. No to taxes.
Mr. Jordan, you have 30 seconds.
Mr. Fleitas sat in on the consultant just as I did. And he listened to the consultant that we hired from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Mr. Tom Weber. He said the jail cannot be remodeled. The original design is outdated and will not allow for proper separation of various classifications of inmates. Infrastructure is inadequate. We do not need to throw good money at an inadequate facility.
All right, your time is up. All right, there's been some questions about public safety and law enforcement. Now we'll have a few related to the healthcare situation we're facing, particularly related to the pandemic. And our first question now goes to Mr. Fleitas. Health experts continue to say that widespread vaccination is the most effective way to ensure that we beat the virus and stay ahead of it. Unfortunately, in Lee County right now, only 31.5% of people 18 or older are fully vaccinated, which means only 23.8% of the total population is fully vaccinated. The statistics across the state of Mississippi are similar. There are brighter spots and less bright spots. Do you believe the city of Tupelo can do anything to increase vaccination rates in the city and the county? And what might those ideas be? You have 2 minutes.
Separate and aside from this campaign, I've had conversations with physicians as well as clinics. The issue of vaccine hesitancy is a serious issue, and the city has a role to play. We must partner with our churches, partner with trusted groups to get physicians and other individuals into our community and overcome this vaccine hesitancy so that we can get the rates of vaccination up, so that we can secure our health, so that we can secure our community, so that our economy can grow, so that we can stay alive. So yes, the city has a role to play, and my administration will follow what this administration has done and partner with anyone with a sound plan to make sure that we get people vaccinated and get this pandemic plague behind us.
Mr. Jordan, 1 minute.
I believe that now other places are offering vaccinations, Kroger, Walmart, that more people will choose to get vaccinated. I believe now that your older generation is just getting out and moving around from the pandemic, and they will now get readily vaccinated. I do not, as a government or as mayor, believe it's my right to tell you that you should get vaccinated. I believe that is your choice. I know the hesitation because the vaccination came out so quickly, but I do not want, as a government, to make you do something that you don't want to do.
Mr. Fleitas, 30 seconds.
It's not my role to tell someone what to do. As a leader, to create conditions where people are educated, informed, and have every opportunity to step up and do the right thing. That's what this is about.
In the course of this pandemic, the current administration has variously imposed stay-at-home, shelter-at-home orders, business closures, mask mandates, and of course, as across the country, some of these measures have been controversial here. Now, Mr. Jordan, if we were to face some sort of similar health crisis, either a vaccine-resistant strain of the coronavirus develops, or we have some other, unfortunately, disease that we cannot anticipate, and the Mississippi State Health Department or the CDC or local health experts at North Mississippi Medical Center were ever to suggest or recommend that such measures were once again required, would you impose such measures? 2
I
minutes.
believe we all have to listen to our health experts. They are disease is and where it's coming from. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus, we did not give our local businesses, we did not give anyone time to prepare. A lot of our restaurants were not prepared for takeout. A lot of our restaurants were not prepared for Site 2020. Obviously, that was something that we may have done a better job of. A lot of businesses went out of business because the city of Tupelo shut them down. And they shut down small businesses, but they let the big box stores stay open. That was something that I had a problem with. I know we could have reduced capacity, but I don't think we should have shut local businesses down and let our big box stores stay open.
Mr. Fleitas, you have 1 minute.
If faced with similar, were a potential that the citizens of this city are protected. On March 24th last year, the governor ordered everything shut down. That came from the state. 1 week before then, I shut down. And several business owners that I knew shut down because they didn't want their workers to die.
Mr. Jordan, 30 seconds.
Nobody wants anyone to die. We want to protect everyone. But we also have to look at the fact that we were doing one thing to our local businesses and letting other people do something with their big businesses. We need to be consistent in our decisions.
All right, before I move on to the next set of questions related to the economy and infrastructure, I want to remind the both of you, I know it's hard, I'm a move around while I talk kind of guy as well, but we have an audience watching online as well as in person, and these microphones are powerful, but they have some limitations, so we can try as much as possible to stay close to the microphone, speak to the microphone, and hopefully our audience online will have as pleasant of a viewing experience as our audience here in person is as well.
Yes, sir.
All right, so the first question of our economy and infrastructure section is now to Mr. Fleitas. Now, you have, during the course of your campaign, repeatedly talked about what you see as a need to focus on broadband access. Now, of course, the city of Tupelo itself has fairly good internet compared to many parts of the state, including even compared to many parts of the region we're in, or even the county we're in. And much of the federal grant money or state grant money that has been available has been focused on badly underserved areas, not places like the city of Tupelo. So explain in a little bit more detail what actually you think needs to be done or improved related to internet access in the city, and how you might pay for it, or just kind of what the policy there is you're wanting to see.
Absolutely, sir. First of all, there are other areas that are much worse off than Tupelo. Granted, I'm running for the mayor of Tupelo. That's my responsibility. And in every decision I make, Tupelo will have to come first, not the county, not other areas. There's $8 million in CARES Act money coming to this city. And despite the fact that we have good internet, there are underserved areas in our city. And I don't want kids in McDonald's parking lots having to sit there to get their lessons. So we need to expand throughout the city in every way we can, and we need to make sure that we have that additional option available, whether municipal or through a service which is local, so that we have price competition, so that grandma on a fixed budget and a fixed income can afford broadband, so those grandkids will come over and spend time with her, because that's what they need. So broadband is imperative to economic development, because I intend to go out across this country and bring all those displaced tech workers to Tupelo, and we need the broadband to do it.
Mr. Jordan, 1 minute.
The city of Tupelo has fiber all around the city. A lot of it is not being used. There's only a small portion of that fiber that's being used. I would be grateful, and I would be willing to sit down with private sector, Tom Baby, ceasefire, to let them get onto that fiber and take it to some of these underserved areas, such as South Tupelo, East Tupelo, different areas. It is important that we get internet to every home in the city.
30 seconds, Mr. Fleitas.
Tom Bigby is certainly an option, and it's a governmental option. It's a municipal type option. It's a public option, and I want to see what they can bring to the table. I've spoken to their CEO, Scott Hendricks, and I look forward to having a meeting, should I be elected, to begin the discussions on upgrading our internet.
All right, thank you. The next question, we begin with Mr. Jordan, and it is on affordable housing. Affordable housing has been a focus for local government here in Tupelo for quite some time, and there continues to be, I think, widespread agreement, whether you talk to the people in real estate, such as yourself, or first-time homeowners or home buyers, people who'd like to be a first-time homeowner, that there's, and this even prior to the recent increase in home prices due to home construction prices going up, but there seems to be consensus we're still having trouble both with either subsidized or market rate housing at, an affordable rate. The current administration and the prior one have invested significant dollars buying and demolishing dilapidated houses to redevelop it. There's been a lot of money invested in the construction of some subsidized housing on Ida B. Wells Street. If you were elected mayor, Mr. Jordan, how would you approach the issue of affordable housing? You have 2 minutes.
There's a need for housing in every price range in the city of Tupelo. When we were first looking for our home in 2004, it was hard to find a home up to $130,000. When we were looking 9 years later, it was hard to find a home up to $200,000. The need for affordable housing is great here in Tupelo. There are young families that are wanting to buy a home. There are second-time homeowners. I would like to work public and private to some of these properties the city owns to develop that and then sell the lots that are reduced rate to get homes in all sizes and all price ranges. There's a piece of property on Lawndale, 80 acres, that I believe would be a great start, and it would be a game changer for the central area of Tupelo. Some of that area is in a flood zone. We could put some playground equipment, a track, some park and rec equipment. It was also the location of Battle of Accia. The Chickasaw could come in and put a historical site there. I believe we need to tap into the city's resources, work with developers, and bring all types of housing, including affordable housing, to Tupelo.
Thank you. Mr. Fleitas, you have 1 minute.
My father was a builder. My father did build affordable housing. And from the time I can remember, I've seen houses come up from foundation to finish. We must, as a city, do all we can to make sure that everybody who wants to live and work in Tupelo can afford to live in a home and can afford to rent a home until they can buy one of their own. I have advocated getting together with builders, bankers, developers, and realtors immediately upon taking office and get plans started to get housing at every income level possible, subsidized or not.
Mr. Jordan, 30 additional seconds.
As we agree, there is a need for all types of housing. There is very little because of the construction costs right now. Prices are going up. At some point, that will stabilize. Today, there's 74 houses on the market in Tupelo. Tommy Morgan Realtors agents are looking for 250. We've got to do a better job in getting people in homes.
Okay, thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Fleitas, and it is about road paving. The administration here has in recent years, along with the council, invested additional money than before in road paving, and yet maintenance of the roads and the local transportation infrastructure continues to be near the top every time we at the Daily Journal talk to local voters and residents about the issues they're concerned about. And of course, this is an issue where the mayor does have to work with the council. Ultimately, it is the council that appropriates the money. So, Mr. Fleitas, the question for you is, what would inform your approach to prioritizing road maintenance and infrastructure, and then how would you communicate that vision to the city council? You have 2 minutes.
My prioritization would begin wherever any road project presents an immediate safety hazard. So the first thing you do is you get the city engineers out there. You look at these areas where road construction, where road rebuilding needs to be done, and you make an assessment as to whether or not this is a significant safety risk or not. Then you prioritize it that way. You prioritize it because life is precious, and you want to make sure that you're repairing those areas that create the greatest crisis and greatest possibility for harm to human lives. I don't think it will be a hard sell for most of the council, because I've been to every forum in this city so far, and I haven't been to one forum where building maintenance and improvement of roads was not an issue. So I believe that we can come forward with a plan that will address roads like Wash Road in Ward 1, that can address roads like Mitchell Road, that can address roads in Ward 2 that Councilman Bryan was speaking about at yesterday's forum. We can do this. We can fix these roads, and we will.
Mr. Jordan, 1 minute.
The city of Tupelo has what's called a street saver program. It is designed to see what immediate need there is and how that road is structured. And then they have a mill and overlay program. That program can be amended. As a county supervisor, I'm already trained in identifying those streets that need drainage, shoulders, lights, and overlay. I will continue that to the city of Tupelo. I will take in reference the street saver program, but I will also ride the streets, and I will identify the ones that I believe need to be overlaid, and we will make that the first priority.
Mr. Fleitas, 30 additional seconds.
Listening to Councilman Bryan yesterday, mill and overlay wasn't an option. We're talking about roads that have to be completely built up and redone. So mill and overlay is not an option in a lot of cases. And we have to be ready to make sure that we do everything we can to repair these roads so that our drivers, our pedestrians, and everyone will be safe.
All right, the next question will begin with Mr. Jordan, and it's about population. The state-level population numbers for the 2020 census have now been released, and they show Mississippi as one of only a few states in the entire country that lost population from the last census. Now, we don't have numbers yet for the city of Tupelo itself or Lee County, but of course the 2010 census was also deemed locally to be quite disappointing with respect to the city of Tupelo's population growth. Do you think population growth for the city is important, and what do you think could be done to retain and attract residents here in the city? You have 2 minutes.
I definitely believe that the population is important to Tupelo. It helps our city schools. It helps our taxes. It's the reason we get to do mill and overlay projects. I believe that we need to do a better job of offering jobs in the city of Tupelo. I believe we need to do a better job of offering events, quality of life, to bring young families back to Tupelo when they either graduate from college or they have a couple of years to go out and kind of find themselves, and then they come back to Tupelo. It is very important for us as a community to keep people here. Plain and simple. Nobody wants to see people leaving our city. But we need to do things to make it safe. We need to do things to make it exciting. We need to have them a place to live. And we need to find them a place to work.
1 minute, Mr. Fleitas.
Quality of life improvements. As a young parent, when I first moved to Tupelo, I can tell you that we are much better than we used to be with quality of life things that young parents would be looking for and young people would be looking for. I want to improve on those quality of life factors. I want to make sure that we are attracting professionals to move here, to increase our tax base, and to allow them to be able to work remotely. Maybe the job's in New York, but they're working here in Tupelo, they're paying taxes here, and they're contributing to the community. Population growth is imperative. You're either growing or you're dying. And as your mayor, I guarantee we're going to be growing.
30 seconds, Mr. Jordan.
The number one thing for population growth is our school system. We need to make sure that we support our local schools. We need to make sure that we support our local school programs. We need to do these things in order to bring people from the outside and make sure they have a good life in Tupelo.
All right, thank you. This now brings us to the lightning round portion of our debate, so I'm going to I'm going to need your careful adherence to the rules here. I'm going to ask a series of questions, and each of you will have 30 seconds to answer the same question. So try and be quick, try and be succinct, and then we will alternate, of course, as we have. So I'll ask the question, and then prompt whichever candidate goes first, and then prompt the next one, and then we'll move on to the next question. All right?
And I may add, you are putting me up against a trial lawyer on a lightning round. Sorry, folks.
All right, here we go. So, and because Mr. Jordan got the last question first, we will now begin with Mr. Fleitas for the first question in the lightning round. So, sir, have you been vaccinated against COVID-19? And if not, can you explain why?
March 8th at Starkville at the Horse Park, Johnson & Johnson.
Mr. Jordan, same question.
No, my wife and I have neither one been vaccinated. We have worn our masks, and we want to go together, and we are going to find the time to do that.
Okay, next question will begin with you, Mr. Jordan. Is there ever a scenario in which you would advocate or pursue for a tax increase, a property tax increase in the city of Tupelo?
Only if it was the last resort. Nobody wants their taxes increased. Not me, not Mr. Fleitas, not you, Caleb, or anyone in this room. It would only be for a last resort.
Same question, 30 seconds.
No. Is that succinct enough?
All right, next question will begin with Mr. Jordan. Thank you. An honest man. So, Mr. Fleitas, the mayor of the city of Tupelo nominates the members of the Tupelo School Board subject to the confirmation vote of the Tupelo City Council. What would be your criteria for selecting members of the Tupelo School Board?
I would like to see somebody with a graduate degree, and I would like to see someone who has a demonstrated commitment to public service and education.
Same question, 30
Someone
seconds.
that is diverse, look for a candidate that would appropriately balance the skills, talents, and knowledge of the board.
All right, now this question will begin with Mr. Jordan. The most recent controversy involving the Tupelo Police Department involved a citizen who was concerned about the nature of his detention at the Barnes Crossing Mall. The administration ultimately released the body camera footage from that incident, which did show that several of the officers on scene violated TPD's own policies. If there were an incident of public controversy involving a police officer, either a use of force or some other interaction with the public, would you commit tonight to releasing the body camera footage?
Absolutely. The city of Tupelo has the best body cam policy in the state. Unfortunately, some of the officers overlook or they don't get the body cam when they leave. Absolutely, I would release the video.
Same question.
Accountability and transparency have been touchstones of my campaign from day one. Yes, it will be released, and there will be accountability if policies are violated.
All right, next question will begin with Mr. Fleitas. There continues to be concern from some, especially in the black community here in Tupelo, that persons of color are not sufficiently represented in the upper level of decision-making at City Hall, whether that be department heads themselves or just invited input from key figures in the community. Do you share this concern, and is there anything you would do about it as mayor?
I do believe it's a legitimate concern. Mr. Jordan and I have both been given the opportunity to meet with department heads, and I made it very clear when I met with the department heads that for those who are retiring or planning on doing other things, that I want to see lists of qualified replacements, and those lists must include diverse candidates.
All right, Mr. Jordan.
I had a coach one time, the great Mickey Linder, Coach Milam and Carver. He said one thing: you can't win with all white, and you can't win with all black. You have to have a mix. There will be places for all in my administration.
All right, Mr. Jordan, the next question begins with you. Some on the city council have for years expressed concern that the proportion of the city's budget that goes to personnel spending is too high. It has tended to fluctuate in recent years in the low 60s. Do you share this concern that too much of the city's public tax dollars are going to pay city employees?
About 60% right now is personnel costs. I think you have to have a balance. I think you need to look at different departments. Some departments may need more people. I believe right now at 60%, that's a pretty good balance of the city's budget.
Mr. Fleitas?
I don't believe that a working person should be forced to shoulder the issue of whether or not the budget is or is not at 60 or 59 or 61. What I want to do as mayor is what I suggested at one of the forums. I want to see ways that we can reduce costs for benefits for employees by trying to increase the size of our pool through insurance and reduce costs.
Your time is up. Tupelo is the sixth city largest in the state and is widely regarded as the economic driver of the region. One of you has never held public office before, and the other one has been in office for only 2 years. Can each of you address, if you win this general election, what will be your process during the transition for getting up to speed and getting up to the task of taking on this job? Mr. Fleitas, we'll begin with you.
The learning curve is always steep when you engage in a new venture, but in my life, I've never met a learning curve that I couldn't overcome. I'm an honors graduate of the University of Mississippi School of Law. I've done all manner of things and learned all manner of things. Every case I took, I had to learn a completely different business model in order to be effective. I'm constantly learning, whether it's blockchain technology or reading books on physics, because learning is my passion. I'll be up to speed right away.
All right, Mr. Jordan, your turn.
I've always said I'm coachable. From athletics to the Lee County Board of Supervisors, I have relied on the experience of my colleagues, and I will do that in the city of Tupelo. I will learn quick, and we will be productive.
All right. Last of the lightning round questions, and then we'll proceed to the closing statements. We're in a very divided time in our nation right now, whether it be the presidential election, the pandemic itself, a lot of division. The city of Tupelo, though, has long prided itself on this ability to come together and transcend partisan labels. So the question is, to each of you, if you were elected mayor, what would you do to maintain the city's tradition of working in this cooperative, civic-oriented fashion? Mr. Jordan, you get the first response.
I will be a mayor for everybody, not Republicans, not Democrats, not independents, but everybody. I don't think that we need to bring national division into local politics. I will be a uniter, not a divider.
Mr. Fleitas, your turn.
My campaign is about bringing Tupelo together, and when I started this campaign, I made a pledge to go to every corner of this city and to meet residents in every ward, and I have done so. Throughout my 25 years, I have established relationships across this city, and that goodwill will pay dividends when I'm in office.
All right, we have come to the closing statement. We're almost to the end. Since Mr. Fleitas had the first of the opening statements, Mr. Jordan, we'll now begin with you with the closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Tupelo has been and remains the All-American city. There has always been great pride from our citizens to protect the Tupelo value. From economic development through industry, retail, and the downtown area. Tupelo is a major driving force for our state's economic stability. That said, our city needs a strong leader with a vision to improve on those accomplishments and move us to the next level to continue growth and economic security. We must understand to accomplish the continued growth and protection of our city will require a team effort and many hours of planning and delegation. In addition, clear and effective channels of communication between our city stakeholders, city and community leaders will greatly ensure the success of that plan. Focused and assertive leadership will be required to navigate the many hurdles that we encounter with this plan. One that understands and embraces the connection between quality of life and economic sustainability. With your vote on June the 8th and your continued support throughout this journey, we can truly make a difference for our city and those who depend on our leadership to always provide the best protections available to the citizens of Tupelo, Mississippi. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fleitas, you have 2 minutes.
25 years ago, I took a job in a city where I didn't know a soul. And a few months later, after deciding that this is where I was going to set up and seek my 40 acres and a mule, I moved here. I understand the Tupelo spirit because I've lived it, because I was embraced by beautiful people of all colors, of all classes, of all creeds, who welcomed me and my family. I had the opportunity to raise my sons in outstanding schools and set them out into the broader world, able to compete toe-to-toe with anyone from anywhere else. I love this city, and I love its people. That's why I'm running, because I believe that I am that leader. I believe I am the person to bring Tupelo together, to build on all of the wonderful things that have come before, and to make better. I've been given so much. All I want to do is the opportunity to be a servant. Before I finish, I want to say to my 3 sons 1,000 miles away, I love you, boys. To my brother who has cared for my mother through this COVID pandemic, David, thank you. To my mother, I'll see you soon, Mom, just as soon as this is over, win or lose. And to my wife, Lisa, I love you. Thanks.
That will conclude this mayoral debate between the candidates in the city of Tupelo to be the city's next mayor. The general election is June 8th. We encourage you to go vote, and we once again want to thank you, whether you've joined us in person or online. And now join me in giving our candidates a round of applause.